once a symbol of hope, now at the center of a scandal. The fall of Mayor Tiffany Henyard has stunned Dalton, Illinois. Once praised as a rising star in politics, Henyard now finds herself at the heart of a growing controversy that's caught national attention, and for all the wrong reasons. What started as a promising political career, full of ambitious plans to uplift Dalton, has spiraled into a storm of allegations, corruption, financial misconduct, and even a federal investigation. Tiffany Henyard's rise to power was fast and dramatic. She stepped in as mayor after the sudden death of her predecessor, Frank Zuccarelli. At first, people were skeptical, but she won them over with bold promises, promising better services for veterans, support for seniors, and economic development to pull Dalton out of its slump. By 2021, she had secured her seat through an election and soon took on an even bigger role, township supervisor for Thornton. That meant more control, more power, and a combined salary reportedly over $200,000 a year. But with that power came controversy. Allegations started pouring in, claims that she had turned city government into her own empire. Critics say city funds were being funneled toward her lifestyle, not the people. Reports surfaced of lavish spending, luxury vacations, designer, shopping, and even a $500,000 driveway built at her mother's house. Meanwhile, Dalton faced a $3.5 million deficit. Public services were crumbling, and residents started to ask, where is our money going? As frustrations grew, Henyard tightened her inner circle. Those who spoke out were reportedly silenced or pushed out. But then came the breaking point. The FBI got involved. A raid on Henyard's home made headlines. Sources say agents uncovered millions in hidden cash. Investigators also found over $67,000 in travel expenses in just 5 months, paid for with public money. Trips that were supposed to be business turned into luxury getaways, 5-star hotels, fancy dinners, and even motorbike rides. That wasn't all. Billboards plastered with her face showed up around town, not part of any campaign, but allegedly paid for with city funds. Residents struggled to get basic services while their mayor focused on self-promotion. Then came questions about her charity, the Henyard Care Foundation. It was supposed to help breast cancer patients, but insiders claim it became a front for funding more personal indulgences, the same vacations, the same designer goods, and maybe even that driveway. Things got worse when it was revealed that taxpayer dollars were used to produce t-shirts and hoodies with her image, items she allegedly sold for personal gain. Public outrage exploded. Social media lit up with anger. Lawsuits followed. One came from her former assistant, who claimed she was fired after reporting a sexual assault by a high-ranking official during a city trip. The mayor's response? Silence. At a chaotic board meeting, tensions boiled over. Activist Jedediah Brown called her out, and chaos erupted. Her boyfriend got involved. There was pushing, shouting. The incident, caught on video, shocked everyone. As the FBI's investigation deepens and local leaders call for her resignation, Henyard remains defiant. In a post on social media, she quoted, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" But instead of rallying support, it sparked backlash. People saw it as out of touch, a distraction from the real issues. Now, Dalton is left picking up the pieces. Once full of hope, the town is buried under debt, distrust, and dysfunction. And the leader who promised change is now the face of scandal. Tiffany Henyard's story, once one of promise and progress, is now a cautionary tale of unchecked power, personal ambition, and a political fall that shook an entire community. Tiffany Henyard's political career has unraveled spectacularly, turning what was once a promising rise into a chilling tale of power abused, retaliation, and financial devastation. Once celebrated as a symbol of hope for Dalton, Illinois, Henyard is now the face of scandal, and her legacy is one of mistrust and corruption. At the core of the controversy is her misuse of taxpayer money, the most glaring example being the staggering $1 million spent on a personal security detail. And expense more fitting for a high-ranking federal official or celebrity. This security team, paid for by the residents of Dalton, provided round-the-clock protection, even accompanying her on personal trips. Allegations have surfaced of overtime fraud, with one officer reportedly making $113,000 in just 2 weeks, with only $33 worth of actual work performed. Meanwhile, Dalton was drowning in debt, with the town's public services falling apart. Yet, Henyard continued to funnel money into her own vanity projects. Billboards featuring her face went up around town, not as part of a campaign, but as a self-promotion tool, a move that many viewed as tone-deaf, especially considering the town's crumbling infrastructure. But it wasn't just about money. Henyard's leadership style began to take on a more authoritarian tone. Those who challenged her authority were reportedly targeted with retaliation. Employees and business owners who refused to comply with her directives allegedly faced retribution, wrongful terminations, revoked business licenses, and more. One shocking case involved Boeing Thrash, a longtime employee in Thornton Township, who claimed he was fired after refusing a $100,000 bribe from Henyard to replace an attorney with someone favored by her assistant. As the financial and ethical misconduct piled up, former allies began to speak out. Carmen Carroll, once a trusted trustee, became a whistleblower, criticizing Henyard's leadership and revealing an environment of intimidation. Carroll reported that Henyard had used police officers to harass and silence critics, sending them to the homes of her opponents to intimidate them into submission. This disturbing abuse of power painted a chilling picture of a government weaponizing public resources to crush dissent. Amid the growing outrage, Henyard remained defiant. She continued to insist that the allegations were politically motivated. Attacks, a narrative that didn't resonate with the residents of Dalton, who were growing increasingly frustrated with their leader's behavior. As roads remained in disrepair and public services deteriorated, many residents began to feel deeply betrayed by the woman they had once supported. Henyard's extravagant lifestyle, marked by luxury trips, high-end goods, and self-promotion projects, starkly contrasted with the economic hardships faced by Dalton's residents. What was once hailed as a story of leadership and renewal has now become a sobering cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, ego-driven leadership, and the erosion of public trust. As the FBI investigation continues to dig deeper and more revelations emerge, Henyard's grip on power continues to slip. Sources suggest her political support is eroding, with key allies possibly cooperating with federal authorities in an attempt to avoid legal repercussions. Despite her defiance and attempts to rally support through social media, her public response has failed to turn the tide. The people of Dalton, once hopeful for change, now find themselves dealing with the aftermath of broken promises, financial mismanagement, and a tarnished legacy. Tiffany Henyard's tenure has gone from a beacon of hope to a painful lesson in political corruption and the dangers of power left unchecked. Dalton now faces the daunting task of rebuilding its trust, recovering from financial devastation, and reclaiming its future, all while the fall of Henyard stands as a stark reminder of what happens when public service is replaced by self-interest. Tiffany Henyard's tenure, once filled with promises of change, has now descended into scandal and financial ruin. What began as a hopeful chapter for Dalton, Illinois, is now a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the consequences of placing personal ambition above public service. Perhaps the most serious allegation came from former assistant Pete Dukes, who filed a lawsuit accusing Henyard of sexual harassment during a taxpayer-funded trip. Dukes stated that after she reported the incident, she was placed on unpaid medical leave, a move widely seen as further evidence of the toxic, retaliatory culture within Henyard's administration. These mounting lawsuits, along with explosive claims, have cast a long shadow over Henyard's time in office. Once hailed for her boldness, she is now seen by many as a leader whose ambitions spiraled into a dangerous obsession with power and control. The community Henyard vowed to uplift is now burdened by the financial and emotional toll of her leadership. Under Henyard, Dalton's finances have spiraled into chaos. The town now faces a $2 million deficit, unpaid bills for basic services like tree trimming and street paving, and a complete lack of financial oversight. Since 2021, Dalton has failed to conduct a required annual audit, leaving its financial state shrouded in uncertainty. The crisis deepened with revelations of a $3 million issue involving unaccounted blank checks, a 21% spike in police department expenditures, and a staggering $65 million shortfall in the general fund. These shocking revelations have left the community reeling, especially as they grapple with crumbling infrastructure and fading trust in their local government. In response to these growing concerns, Henyard has attempted to deflect responsibility, pointing fingers at former associates like Keith Freeman, her former top aide. Freeman, who has since been charged with bankruptcy fraud, is rumored to be cooperating with federal investigators. Despite these attempts to shift blame, Henyard's credibility continues to erode as evidence mounts against her. What was once a promising political career, a symbol of hope and revitalization, has now collapsed into a web of lawsuits, investigations, and betrayal. Henyard's pattern of lavish spending, unethical behavior, and retaliatory politics has left Dalton in shambles. Despite the mounting evidence and public backlash, Henyard remains unrepentant, dismissing the criticism as politically motivated and a natural byproduct of public life. However, the overwhelming weight of financial documents, testimony, and lawsuits tells a much bleaker story, one where personal ambition and ego consistently overshadowed the welfare of the community. As Dalton struggles to recover from the financial devastation caused by Henyard's leadership, her once bright political future seems all but extinguished. Her administration has become a cautionary tale of what can happen when power is wielded without transparency, accountability, or integrity. Henyard's story is not just about personal downfall, it's a sobering reflection on the need for robust checks and balances in public office. The people of Dalton, left to pick up the pieces, are now paying the price for misplaced trust and unchecked ambition. Once hailed as a rising political star with bold plans to transform Dalton, Henyard's legacy is now defined by scandal, financial ruin, and allegations of corruption. What was supposed to be a hopeful chapter for the town has descended into chaos marked by reckless spending, abuse of power, and an atmosphere of fear and retaliation. As federal investigations deepen and public trust continues to erode, the community is left grappling with the fallout of a leader who many believe prioritized personal ambition over the needs of the people. At the heart of the controversy is Henyard's pattern of excessive and ethically questionable spending. Allegedly, taxpayer dollars were funneled into luxury trips, a bloated $1 million security detail, and self-promotional billboards bearing Henyard's image across Dalton. These expenditures occurred while the town's financial situation continued to worsen. Essential services like street paving and tree trimming went unpaid, deficits grew, and no annual audit was conducted since 2021, leaving the town's finances in complete disarray. The contrast between Henyard's lavish lifestyle and the daily struggles of Dalton's residents only fueled public resentment. Critics accuse her of focusing more on power consolidation and self-promotion than addressing the town's urgent needs. Reports emerged that Henyard's administration turned Dalton into a political battleground rather than a place for community service. Employees were allegedly coerced into spying on political opponents, digging up damaging information on critics, and silencing dissent. One of the most alarming tactics involved the alleged misuse of police resources to intimidate those who opposed her. Some residents reported that officers were sent to their homes to stifle criticism, further exacerbating tensions in an already fractured community. As the fallout continues, the question now is, what's next for Dalton? Can the town rebuild after the damage caused by Henyard's leadership, and can it ever trust its government again? As a scare tactic, Henyard's actions painted a deeply troubling picture of how public power was being misused. Her intimidation efforts created an atmosphere of fear where both residents and public servants felt unsafe speaking out. Despite growing concerns, Henyard continued to dismiss the accusations against her, framing them as nothing more than politically motivated attacks. Her consistent refusal to take responsibility only fueled the public's frustration, widening the divide between her administration and the very community she had promised to serve. The situation took a critical turn when the FBI launched a full investigation into Henyard's administration. With state funds frozen and Dalton facing an ever-deepening financial crisis, the town now found itself in emergency mode. Basic services remained unpaid, and the fiscal outlook appeared increasingly bleak. The case of Boeing Thrash, a former Thornton Township employee, exemplified the retaliatory culture that critics say flourished under Henyard. Thrash claimed he was fired after declining a $100,000 raise that was offered in exchange for replacing an attorney with someone favored by Henyard's assistant. When he refused, he was allegedly terminated, one of many reported cases of wrongful dismissal and coercion. Additional allegations of harassment, retaliation, and abuse of power have only further tarnished Henyard's reputation. One of the most disturbing claims came from a former assistant, Pete Dukes, who filed a lawsuit alleging sexual harassment during a taxpayer-funded trip. After reporting the incident, Dukes was reportedly placed on unpaid medical leave, further underscoring what many describe as a toxic and vindictive workplace culture within Henyard's administration. Meanwhile, Henyard's former top aide, Keith Freeman, has been charged with bankruptcy fraud and is rumored to be cooperating with federal investigators, potentially implicating Henyard in deeper financial wrongdoing. As illegal cases mount and more revelations come to light, the picture painted is one of widespread mismanagement and personal enrichment at the public's expense. The financial toll of Henyard's administration is staggering. Dalton now faces a $2 million deficit, millions in unpaid contracts, and a complete dysfunction across its departments. There are also reports of a $3 million issue involving untraceable blank checks, a 21% spike in police spending, and a projected $65 million shortfall in the general fund. In response, residents have grown increasingly vocal, demanding accountability. Public outrage is mounting, with many calling for a complete overhaul of Dalton's leadership. The freezing of state funds and the ongoing federal investigation may serve as a turning point, but the damage has already been done. Trust has been eroded, resources depleted, and morale among municipal workers shattered. Henyard's once promising legacy of growth and revitalization is now forever linked to scandal, dysfunction, and betrayal. The very community that once rallied behind her is now demanding justice and transparency. As lawsuits pile up and investigations continue, Henyard remains defiant, continuing to deflect blame rather than acknowledging the impact of her leadership. For many, the answer is clear. Dalton needs a clean break. Those involved in financial mismanagement, retaliation, and ethical breaches must be held accountable. Restoring faith in local government will require more than just a change in leadership. It will demand a complete cultural shift, one focused on transparency, fiscal responsibility, and true service to the community. Moving forward, Dalton must prioritize rebuilding. The town needs leaders committed to ethics, accountability, and the people they represent. Residents deserve leadership that is responsive, responsible, and reflective of the values Henyard once claimed to champion, but ultimately failed to uphold. The shadow of federal investigations, frozen state funds, and mounting legal troubles are only the beginning of what promises to be a long road to recovery. But for many in Dalton, the first step is clear. The era of Tiffany Henyard must end. Her administration will likely be remembered not for bold reforms or lasting change, but for scandal, corruption, and the staggering cost of unchecked power. Now, with her reputation tarnished and legal scrutiny intensifying, Dalton residents can only hope that justice will prevail and that their town, battered but resilient, will finally begin to heal.